And Hope, is it okay if I record and keep a record? Is Hope?
Yes, sir. Yes.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I do want to thank everyone for being here. This is Hope's final part of her, well, there's a little bit after this, but this is the major hurdle or major opportunity that Hope has for finishing up her dissertation and becoming Dr. Littlejohn, which is exactly what we hope to be calling her at the end of this presentation. For those of you who are joining, we really do love it when folks join us for this big moment in Hope's life. It is something that I think Hope will remember for the rest of her life. It will certainly be a turning point for her when she becomes that doctor of education. I do want to thank you all for being here. I do want to just remind you that if you will please put yourself on mute. This is a formal committee meeting, which is being held by the 3 committee members, myself, Dr. Gillespie, and Dr. Waller, and Hope. We may be joined by the dean, Dr. Bull. He may join us at some point. But basically, we are here to hear Hope's presentation. We've already heard chapters 1, 2, and 3, so Hope will probably spend a little bit of time on that. But what we really want to hear from you, Hope, is how the study fell through, how it came through, how the results of it, and some implications for future research. So that's what the purpose of this. At the end of this, the committee will go into a breakout session that will leave the rest of you in one big room. And the committee will go and make their final decision about whether or not Hope has completed the requirements for her dissertation and for the title of doctor. So that's kind of how we work. So let me again thank you, Dr. Gillespie, Dr. Waller from Gardner-Webb University, for your willingness to serve on Hope's committee. I know Hope has done a tremendous amount of work, and Hope has been a trooper, and she's always had things on time, and she's always been one of those folks you can count on to get it right the first time. So Hope, we have great expectations of you because you are a great student. And I do want to say to your family, you have raised a very nice young lady, and we are proud to have her at Gardner-Webb. So Hope, with that said, I will turn it over to you and we'll let you tell us how you want us to ask questions. But again, I want to remind everyone, if you will please mute yourself except for the committee, and we'll get started. Hope, it's all yours.
So welcome again. Thank you, Dr. Stone, for that lovely introduction. Just want to take the time to thank everyone for joining me today and participating in my dissertation defense and seeing me at the end of this finish line. The title of my dissertation is A Quantitative Study of the Impact of Leadership on School Culture in a Small Rural School District as Measured by Stakeholder Satisfaction.
And Hope, do you want us to ask questions as you go?
Yes, sir. I was just about to tell you all that.
Sorry.
Yes. So I especially want to acknowledge and thank my dissertation committee, Dr. Waller from Lee County Schools. Thank you so much for all that you have done for me throughout this dissertation process and assisting me in continuing my study in the district in Lee County Schools. Dr. Gillespie from Fayetteville State, we go way back 2005. I am so glad you are here with me in 2021 and watch me cross this finish line. Also assisting in this dissertation process, Dr. Stone. Boy, he has become, trying not to get emotional, he has become a very important person in this dissertation process throughout my whole doctoral process from spring 2019. Is that when we started? Yes, he was our first professor and he is now here with me at the very end. I couldn't be more grateful for the people that have served me on this committee. While I am going through my presentation, please feel free to stop and ask questions or comment as I go throughout the presentation. Here is the agenda for today. I will recap chapters 1 through 3 from my dissertation proposal, along with presenting the results of my study and the implications of my findings. Okay. There is ongoing pressure facing educational leaders to improve student achievement in school culture. In the past and the present, researchers seek to focus on how leadership impacts effective positive culture as measured by stakeholder satisfaction. Therefore, school leaders should directly impact school culture by the values, shared beliefs, and behaviors of the key stakeholders within that community. By setting a standard for a definition of the situation for all individuals, sending a constant stream of clear signals to students and teachers about what their roles and responsibilities are. Culture shared by all stakeholders aims at short and long-term goals to establish positive school culture for the school's success. Stakeholders need to be involved in the decision-making process related to the governance, operations, and improvement of the school. The purpose of this study is to determine the impact of school leadership on culture in the research district. This study will add to research on the impact of leadership on school culture that supports the research that positive school culture can increase staff morale, retention, student achievement, and stakeholder satisfaction. When students perform well, it tends to change the degree of enjoyment in students while being in the school system, promoting improved student performance. This study comes at a very intricate time of education as it follows an unprecedented challenge through COVID. Therefore, examining the relationship between school leadership and school culture will add to the body of knowledge for establishing a positive school culture as we re-enter into schools. The study will add to the education of and training of school leaders that can be coupled with their experience to improve school culture. The research field will be enhanced with this study because as many continue to train and teach other educators to become more effective, evidence will be available to further support effective leadership that impacts school culture. The problem presented for my dissertation is the influence school leaders have on culture is often overlooked. Leaders need to understand their role in creating and sustaining a positive school culture to benefit student achievement based on the interactions between and amongst the staff, the students, and the community. Reasons why this problem must be addressed by school leaders is because it is proven that school culture is an essential influence on the success of student achievement and staff motivation. This will demonstrate a willingness to collaborate to deepen the effectiveness of the culture of a school. Research states that a preliminary step to shaping school culture is for leaders to become familiar with this concept of school culture. In other words, school leaders must be familiar with the quality and character of their school. When school leaders can create a strong school culture, they can demonstrate leadership behaviors to establish positive relationships with all stakeholders. Further, Carpenter supported the idea that influences effective culture. Through his investigation, his purpose was to explore supportive and shared leadership through structures at schools as it relates to school culture. He proved that it takes multiple strong minds to work together to serve the students and create school culture. He proposed that effective school culture is one that includes a shared purpose and values, collaborative engagement in problem solving, and collective inquiry as a focus on continuous improvement. Culture is learned, especially from the leader, meaning that positive school culture creates a cohesive environment. This leads to teacher retention and more engaging teaching, ultimately affecting all stakeholders and having a positive effect on school culture. My theoretical framework was created to support the theory of this research study. The current literature on school culture, school leadership, leadership styles, and public perception was used to create this theoretical framework. For all stakeholders, the current belief in the success of schools requires effective school culture, which includes the collaborative of all stakeholders. In this study, leadership is based on 3 prominent leadership styles: transformational, transactional, and laissez-faire. We'll talk about those a little bit more. Which school leadership is true to have a direct impact on school culture. Culture can take on the styles of the leader, so it is important for a leader to adopt a style that will lead to a positive school culture, an environment that is cohesive between student and staff. Additionally, this study will indicate where emphasis needs to be placed in order to improve the culture of a school, which impacts student academics, discipline, and attendance. Leadership is defined as the process where one individual influences others towards the attainment of organizational goals. Leaders that are cognizant of their own personal values and viewpoints is a key to accomplishing success. Therefore, a school leader is responsible for ensuring that principles and values are correctly applied, because students in the classroom are impacted, and teachers in their self-assurance and parents must know that their children are learning and growing at that school organization. In the article, How to Define School Culture and Elevate Your Teaching by Kimberly Mitchell in 2019, it says, culture is the embodiment of a community's shared driving purpose. In schools, this purpose is ideally driven by the unique needs of students, families, and staff to create and define positive school culture. Administrators and teachers must start by identifying these needs, recognizing community assets, and making sure every decision reflects them. Whether it's clearly defined, intentionally created, or not, culture is present at every school. Culture is about implicit and explicit agreements and defines the way that a school community works together. Culture is a manifest in how people enter the building, what they eat, who they sit with at lunch, and who speaks and how much inside classroom. It impacts the experience of everyone: staff, students, families, and the community. Effective leadership can develop positive relationships with the members of the organization and even transform the school as a sustainable structure into a learning organization with the participation of all partners. Leadership more directly implies a specific leadership style that describes the connection and relationship built within the school to create culture. Transformational leadership are leaders who exhibit transformational behaviors in their daily interactions. Transformational leadership includes another set of behaviors to encourage others to do more than required, being proactive, to be helpful in attaining unexpected goals, and the ability.
Hope you froze on us there for a moment.
Can you all hear me?
Yep, go right ahead.
Okay. Transactional leaders have 3 primary characteristics: work with their team members and try to get a reward for their goal, will exchange the rewards and promises of the work effort, and be responsive to the immediate self-interest of workers. Leaders who exhibit transactional leadership exhibit the following: contingent reward, management by exception, active, and then management by exception, passive. Laissez-faire leadership is based on trust. This means that leaders leave it up to their followers to complete responsibilities in a way that they choose without direct policies or procedures. Laissez-faire leaders are believed to be passive avoidant and ineffective type leadership. The first step in attaining effective school culture is to help educators recognize that having a strong, positive culture means much more than just safety and order. Strong culture has a sincere and honest relationship among school members and a sense of collaboration. A positive school culture is focused on improving teaching and learning through collaboration to ensure all students achieve at high levels. A truly positive school culture is characterized by the presence of a set of norms and values that focuses everyone's attention on what is most important and motivates them to work hard for a common purpose. American years seems to be disturbed by inherent anxieties about the direction of the country, including anxieties about issues concerning our public school system. Some of the public's chief complaints about the school reflect societal things: youngsters graduating without minimal basic skills, truants sporting diplomas alongside youngsters who worked hard, educators making jargon-laden announcements of yet another educational fad. All Americans from all walks of life believe to have the same vision for schools. All they want is a safe and orderly place where all children can learn at least the basic skills, and the belief is the schools that should not focus on anything else. Therefore, the public feels, whether right or wrong, that schools are no longer theirs, and as long as their concerns go unaddressed, then public resistance will stiffen and lead to the abandonment of public schools. On the other hand, research indicates that parents have a strong sense of how their children are doing relative to other children. So it seems that the abstract perception of public schools have suffered while satisfaction with actual schools remains fairly consistent when parents are considered. Today, roughly 1/3 of Americans have a great deal or quite a lot of confidence in the nation's public school system, which is a massive decline from the 70s when nearly 2/3 expressed positive views towards the public school system. Meanwhile, nothing appears to have changed for the worse in the public school system. This study is intended to measure leadership as it relates to the school culture using the School Culture Triage Survey by Wagner. The survey will illuminate how the teachers and staff believe contribute to the school culture. The school culture is impacted based on the variables, then the culture impacts student academics, discipline, and attendance. The study will add to the research on the impact of leadership on school culture that supports the claim that a positive school culture can increase staff morale and retention, student achievement, and stakeholder satisfaction. The study can address why school culture has suffered in certain schools and how the school leadership can be responsible. The research questions and hypotheses proposed in my study were: how does school leadership impact the school culture for all stakeholders? School leadership is positively impacted to school culture for all stakeholders. How do teacher and staff beliefs about positive school culture contribute to the school culture? When teachers and staff believe that the school culture is positive, then the culture will reflect positivity. And then finally, how does a positive school culture impact student academics, discipline, and attendance? Once a positive school culture is established, student academics increase, student discipline decrease, and student attendance increases. A quantitative study is appropriate to satisfy the goal of this study, which is to examine the impact of school leadership that school leadership has on school culture measured by teacher retention, community involvement, and student achievement. The advantages of quantitative research methods are that they draw conclusions for large numbers of people, they employ efficient data analysis, they examine probable cause and effect, they control biases, and people generally like numbers. The study uses the hierarchical linear modeling, HLM, and stepwise multiple regression. This quantitative method allows the three variables to be identified justified in each of the three leadership types, which are professional collaboration, affiliative and collegial relationships, and efficacy or self-determination. Data from the annual school report cards made available by the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction was collected to study how leaders impact the school culture for all stakeholders. The survey was distributed to all faculty at 3 middle schools. The participants in the survey were faculty from the 3 middle schools in a school district located in a small rural district in North Carolina. The participants were chosen based on their interest in the topic and willingness to participate in the study. There are approximately 142 total classroom teachers in these schools. 121 responses were collected for a response rate of 85.2%. The school triage survey was selected because it examines and compares multiple variables at one time, providing adequate testing of the research questions. The comparative test will include the impact of the following independent variables: affiliative collegiality, self-determination or efficacy, and the following dependent variable: professional collaboration. The study will be conducted using a 17-item Likert scale. The school triage survey was developed by Wagner in 2002, analyzing school culture from 3 different variables, as mentioned. The triage survey provides an accurate assessment of the health of a given school or district. Just like the medical field, triage is a term that describes the primary needs assessment based on a patient's 3 most important vital signs to determine the level of care that is required. The vital signs collected in the school culture triage survey are professional collaboration, the presence of collegiality, affiliation, and the degree of self-determination among staff. The school triage survey was distributed to the instructional staff of 3 middle schools that you see in the chart. The survey was distributed to a total of 142 instructional staff. 121 responses were collected. You can see that participation in the second column of the table. And the final response rate overall was 85.2, but is broken down in the table per each school, creating 100% for the 121 staff members that participated. So let's take a look at our results based on statistical data for each research question. After running the HLM, the results showed no variance at the school level. All variance was demonstrated at the teacher level. Therefore, the stepwise multiple regression will be used to analyze the data to answer the research question: how does school leadership impact the school culture for all stakeholders? A stepwise multiple regression allows the researcher to determine which independent variables make a meaningful contribution to predicting the dependent variable. The first thing observed in the multiple regression models was the coefficient of determination, which is R squared, a number that indicates how well the data fits the statistical model on a line or a curve. An R squared value of 1 means the regression line seamlessly fits the data perfectly. An R squared value of 0 means that the regression line does not fit at all. A value close to 0 can be explained since the data is random. The next value that was observed was the p-value. The p-value helps determine the significance of the results for the following multiple regression. The p-value used for this analysis was p is less than or equal to 0.1 due to the small sample size. The stepwise multiple regression tested the effects of each variable in order. The first test conducted included professional collaboration as a dependent value. You see that on your x-axis. Suspension as a random variable, and affiliative collegiality, and self-determination or efficacy are independent variables on your y-axis were used. Results of the stepwise linear multiple regression suggested that suspensions are not a significant indicator of culture. The results of the stepwise regression revealed that all variables included in the school triage survey was statistically important of school culture. To best understand the results of the models and patterns, the relationship between leadership and culture at each school was one final exploratory analysis was done, a fit model regression plot, which is graphed. It is the red line graphed on each graph. The first figure here that you see on the screen, affiliative collegiality against professional collaboration for middle school 1. In this graph, middle school 1 shows as professional collaboration increases, affiliative collegiality also increases. The second graph shows self-determination efficacy against professional collaboration. Middle school 1 shows a strong positive correlation noted by the slope positive 0.7263 between professional collaboration and self-determination. As professional collaboration increases, self-determination increases. When comparing the slopes for middle school 1, the relationship between affiliative collegiality and self-determination is also positive. For middle school 2, shows affiliative collegiality against professional collaboration, which shows a positive correlation between professional collaboration and affiliative collegiality. Still with a slope of 0.4156, it is not as strong as middle school 1, which has a slope of 0.617. However, it is still positive, proving that school culture is positive in that school. Still examining middle school 2, the next figure examines self-determination efficacy against professional collaboration, showing a positive correlation again between self-determination efficacy and professional collaboration. However, it is not as strong as middle school 1. Middle school 3, again, affiliative collegiality against professional collaboration, a positive correlation, not as strong as middle school 1 and 2, with a slope of 0.3966. However, it is still positive, showing as professional collaboration increases, affiliative collegiality also increases. Again, for the second graph, self-determination against professional collaboration for middle school 3, slope of 0.6602, positive correlation, more robust than middle school 2, but not as strong as middle school 1. However, like all other schools, professional collaboration increases, self-determination increases. In summary, for all 3 schools, all correlations for all schools are positive, proving that the relationship for school culture is positive. Results from the multiple regression conducted in the study allow me to conclude that variables have a positive correlation, therefore suggesting that leadership does impact school culture for all stakeholders. Research question 2. The table shown here gives the overall percentage of the scoring 4 or 5 of each variables, teachers, and staff beliefs. The rates are above 50%, indicating that most teachers and staff believe professional collaboration, affiliative collegiality, and self-determination positively contributes to the school culture. In addition, the variable self-determination specifically denotes that individual teachers and staff believes about school culture contributes to the school culture. Additionally, this study, based on a percentage above 50%, indicates that they believe positive school culture contributes to the school culture positively. For research question 3, I did the principal component analysis, PCA. It was ran on both sets of questions for the dependent and independent variables. First, the PCA was run for the dependent variables. According to the results from the PCA, there were no differences in the factors identified by Wagner in the school culture triage survey, so the data analysis moved directly to the factor analysis. The factor analysis for the dependent variable question set confirmed the groupings of the two variables of affiliative collegiality and self-determination together. In the table that you see on the screen, the value in each bolded factor carries the weight of significance. Uh-oh, they're not bolded. The factor analysis for the dependent variable question set confirmed the groupings of the two variables. In the table, the weight of significance factor close to 0 were considered significant. So where they were supposed to be bolded, the numbers 0 or closest to 0 are the significant values. The factor loading represents how questions were related to one another according to the participants' responses. The second set of 6 questions of the school culture triage survey were all contained initially in the affiliative collegiality section of the survey. Finally, the last 6 questions of the school culture triage survey were all included in the self-determination section of the survey. The factor analysis confirmed that the questions were grouped as designed by Wagner. According to Cronbach's alpha factor reliability coefficient measured from Wagner, affiliative collegiality is second to the highest at 0.83, and third highest is self-determination at 0.82. Cronbach's alpha factor reliability is just a measure of consistency. Strong reliability consists of measurements that are close to 1, and weaker ones are close to 0. Additionally, Bartlett's test was conducted. Bartlett's test is a procedure that tests the null hypothesis that the variables in the population correlation matrix are uncorrelated and used for factor analysis with small samples. As a result of Bartlett's test, since the p-value is more significant than the significance level, the null hypothesis of equal variance is accepted. Teachers are most affected. Stakeholders, therefore, should promote teachers taking more control over key school-wide and classroom decisions, leading to less student misbehavior and more cooperation among teachers and school leaders, thereby resulting in committed and engaged teachers, which improves community engagement and a positive effect on student achievement. The PCA and the factor analysis helped in renaming the culture variables in the theoretical framework. The redesigned theoretical framework reflects the variables used in the school culture triage survey: affiliative collegiality, self-determination, and professional collaboration. The leadership component remained the same as the original framework. The opportunity to improve culture lies within the direct effect of school leadership. School leadership that centers on the leader's ability to promote professional collaboration, self-determination, and affiliative collegiality positively impacts school culture. Now let's discuss these findings and how this should infer future research. There was an ongoing call for improved outcomes for students, resulting in new leadership models in schools. Therefore, the culture was identified as a school improvement strategy. Positive school culture is focused on improving teaching and learning through collaboration to ensure all students achieve at high levels. The improvement of teaching and learning through collaboration requires teachers and administrators to systematically engage in an ongoing cycle of gathering current student performance levels. With the confirmed independent and dependent variables, data analysis continue with the HLM. However, the small sample size, coupled with the finding that all variations in responses were found at the teacher level, it was concluded that a more appropriate analysis method was required. As such, a stepwise linear regression was calculated. Since teachers are identified as the essential school level resources, teachers tend to predict student achievement. Improving culture by clearly stating a mission for the school and allowing teachers to interact with one another to improve their skills and take ownership of programs to achieve the school's mission is seen as the most important strategy to improve schools. The results from this study suggested that leadership does predict school culture. To situate the findings in the current literature, a brief review of the relationship between culture and student achievement is offered. My research states that there is a significant relationship between a school's traditional culture and learning style with student achievement performance. A sustained relationship of leadership to student achievement is by effective school leadership, which strengthens student achievement. Most of the impact a school has on its student achievement is the direct result of an effort by school leaders and teachers. Of that, much of the school's academic achievement depends solely on the leader's actions. This means a single person can determine a portion of the school's overall impact on students. Based on the literature review of culture and student achievement, a post hoc test was conducted to determine the relationship of culture with student achievement in the study district to conclude practice and future research. In the table, the question responses were averaged and then grouped by school and school level factors. To summarize the results from the original analysis, the variables were statistically significant for school culture. According to the H&M results, found no variance was explained at the school level, but was at the teacher level. To further understand the data in the post hoc test, a Pearson correlation was done. A Pearson correlation is the appropriate measure of correlation when variables are expressed as scores. Findings from the Pearson correlation added to the understanding of the relationship between leadership and culture and the relationship between culture and suspension, and culture and student achievement. Further, the Pearson correlation confirmed other findings. A negative correlation was found between suspension and test scores. This indicates that as suspensions increase, the test scores would decrease. Results from the study suggest that school leaders have done an excellent job. School leaders within this study have done an excellent job setting direction and obtaining consensus from stakeholders on the missions of school. But that work needs to be done on building a culture of collaborative leadership. Strategies to accomplish that would include involving teachers in the decision-making process in the building, increasing time for planning, and facilitating relationships built upon trust. In summary, leadership predicts culture. Culture predicts student discipline and student achievement. And it's simply that sustained, effective school leadership substantially strengthens student achievement. As defined by the survey, professional collaboration included working together through discussion, clearly communicating, and involving teachers and staff in the decision-making process through collaboration and consensus. In schools, including the 3 middle schools in my study, school leaders need to focus on valuing teachers' ideas, trusting the professional judgment of teachers, praising teachers who perform well, involving teachers in decision-making, facilitating teachers working together, keeping teachers informed about current issues, rewarding teachers for experimenting with new ideas and techniques, supporting risk-taking and innovation in teaching, and protecting instruction and planning time. Limitations of the current study was the sample size. The study must be repeated in a larger school district containing more schools to analyze the data using HLM. In this manner, it will be more likely to find differences across schools. Using HLM to study the relationship between school leadership and school culture could help other researchers better explain the relationship between these two constructs of nested variables. It is also important to note that the results from this study are not generalizable. They are representative of this small district in rural North Carolina. Overwhelmingly, teachers in the district define culture as professional collaboration. Their responses reveal similar patterns in answering questions focused on collaboration, problem solving, support for one another, and communication. Absent from the survey questions about culture were questions about professional development and creating a culture of improvement focused on the instructional process. Different definitions of culture could lead to additional findings regarding the importance of leadership in creating a positive culture. To expand this study, I would suggest taking a larger sample size using more schools to eliminate biases that may become more evident for a cause like what was seen in my study, such as the leadership length of time in 2 of the middle schools. It is important to recall that the principal in middle school 1 was in year 2 as principal, and the principal in middle school 3 was within her first year as principal, starting mid-year. When conducting quantitative research, the more data collected illuminates more effective results, specifically when using the HLM. Allowing for a larger sample size would allow for more generalization of how school leaders affect school culture. Additionally, adding demographics to school level factors will allow another layer of understanding school culture to give more general results of how school leaders affect school culture. Also, teacher retention will be another school level factor to consider when understanding how school leaders affect school culture. Both school level factors will bring forth insight, primarily when a larger sample size is studied. Therefore, the results of my study in this small rural school district in North Carolina confirms my hypothesis. School leadership is positively related to school culture for all stakeholders. Also, when teachers and staff believe the school culture is positive, the school culture will reflect positivity. Once a positive school culture is established, student academics increase, student discipline decreases, and student attendance increases. I want to say thank you, everyone, for your time. That concludes my presentation for today.
All right, before you close out your PowerPoint, are there any questions from the committee about the PowerPoint or anything you'd like to ask Hope at this point? Just from the committee members?
Yes, I have a quick question, Hope. Well, a question and then a comment. I'll start out with the comment. On the research question 1, when you were showing your graphs, no right or wrong answer. It's just, so you ain't got to worry about saying, oh, I got to have a right answer. It's just your opinion. I was very interested in the 3 graphs that you showed for the 3 middle schools. With the first graph, and forgive me because I forget how the 2 graphs was actually labeled, but I know one was dealing with the collaboration on the independent axis, but on the dependent axis, on the y-axis, you had what was it, efficacy, and the other one, I forget the other one. But in the first middle school, the graph on the left-hand side had a greater slope than the graph on the right-hand side. But when you got to your second middle school, it flipped, but both of them went down. And then on the third one, I think it flipped again, and was kind of similar to what you had on the first middle school, but the slopes were lower. Can you speak on any reasons for that? I'm just, and again, there's no right or wrong answer, but allowing the numbers to be justified. Why may that be the case? Could it be because of the longevity of the principal, or what do you think?
Absolutely. So the graphs were created based on the responses from the surveys, and they were separated per school response.
Mhm.
And so when you are seeing that differentiation, especially where the slopes went down, still positive, but less positive, I do believe that it accounts for that one difference that I mentioned about the principal and their time spent at that school. Again, this is about the responses and their beliefs.
Okay, and you did say that at the very end, but I had the question written, so I said, let me just go ahead on and ask it. But the second question that I had, and hopefully, if you said it, please forgive me, I missed it. But in research question 3, when you dealt with the chart and you had factor 1 and factor 2, and you actually had zeros there, but then you said it was very close to 0. So was it exactly 0 or very close to 0 when you actually had the zeros at that point?
So when you were looking at that chart, the numbers that were 0 or very close to 0 should have been bolded. And if you look within the dissertation at that graph, they are bolded on paper. And that just indicates that they are the strongest because they're 0 or close to 0.
Okay. All right. And I was just saying that because I couldn't tell the differentiation on the on your PowerPoint. So I need to go back and look at your paper. So not a problem. Thank you.
Dr. Waller, any questions or comments before we go into our breakout session?
I don't have any questions. I really, in going through the dissertation and Hope's data, I was knowing the 3 schools. I was kind of amazed at the results. So very interesting, I thought.
All right. That sounds good for your school district, I believe. Both well. All right, committee members, we are going to go into breakout sessions. And for those of you for those of you who are left, you'll have some time with Hope. We don't anticipate being in a breakout session very long, and we'll be coming back and we'll be letting Hope know the results of our findings or our decisions. So please stick around. And I am going to try to successfully break out rooms, and I'm going to pause and I'm going to record again. And I am recording to congratulate Dr. Littlejohn. You did a phenomenal job. The committee was very impressed. And you and I will talk briefly after this, and it will be briefly, Hope, so please stick around. But we want to be the first to congratulate Dr. Littlejohn, and I want to give a chance for your committee to weigh in as well.
Dr. Littlejohn, I'm very, very proud of you. You've done a great job, and I will never, never, ever do statistical analysis besides yours. It was awesome. Thank you for a great job.
Thank you, Dr. Waller.
Just reflecting back on this young lady that I met in 2005, and 16 years later, instead of her being my student, she has become a colleague. So would like to say congratulations to you. We believe that God has so many things, so many doors, so many paths for you. And all you have to do is just walk through them. Just walk through them, be obedient and walk through them. So. And by the way, Hope, you said you had a surprise. I don't know what happened to you.
No, there she's back.
Oh, there she is. And you said you had a surprise, so I'm just reminding you of what the surprise should be. What is the surprise?
Yes, sir. I believe for the most part, everybody on this call is aware, but we my husband and I are having baby number 5.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Wow. Congratulations.
Wow.
Wow.
You'll have to make them call you Dr. Littlejohn instead of mom. It's Dr. Littlejohn, at least for the first year. So you can get used to that title.
Oh yeah, it's Dr. Mom. They've already been told.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Awesome. Again,
Come
Hope you did a phenomenal job. We're very, very proud of you. If you'll stick around, I do want to turn my attention now to Hope's family. Hope is a phenomenal student. Mr. Littlejohn, you have a wonderful wife, family. You have a wonderful daughter's mother. She has been a wonderful student. She's been an absolute pleasure to have in class and to be a part of her journey. So I couldn't be prouder of you, Hope, and I know your family is too. So family, thank you for standing behind and being that support structure, because I know that's important. But Hope, Dr. Littlejohn, congratulations. And thank you all for joining us. And Hope and I are going to stick around and talk a little bit, but thank you very much. Hope, one final word from you, Dr. Littlejohn. Anything you want to say?
No, just want to say thank you to my village, to my committee that has become part of my village, and thank you, Jesus. That's it.
All right.
Congratulations, Hope. Take care.
All
Thank
right.
you for
Thank you, Dr.
including
Waller.
me. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Bye-bye.
Bye.